Hi Bobcats, it's Mrs. Y. We're still in 5th grade math. We're in chapter 6. We're moving into lesson 2. We are going to be learning a 5th grade standard because you know we're in 5th grade, so it's something you have to learn. We're going to be using models today to multiply. Yesterday we talked about estimating and rounding. We're still going to be multiplying a decimal by a whole number. But today I want to explore or look at some different models to understand what we're doing. Why, Mrs. Wilhite? Well, I shared with you yesterday that when you have whole numbers and decimals that are being multiplied, it has a lot to do with money. We want to be able to figure out if we have enough money in our pocket to buy something in a store. We don't want to go up to the cashier with these items and not have enough money. So that's why we're learning this skill today. It'll help you when spending money. All right, Bobcats, what do you already know about models and decimals? So it's been a while since we've seen these, and I want to remind you that this grid here has 100 blocks, or it's hundredths. So if you look at a decimal and you have 3 in the hundredths place, or 3 pennies, 3 cents out of 100, then you would color in 3 of these squares. Again, this grid is usually for hundredths or pennies or values that are in this place on the place value chart. When we look at tenths, we're going to be looking at the rods. Okay, right there we have 5 tenths. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So when you look at it as a decimal, the 5 is in the tenths place. Or you can think of it as 5 dimes. If we were to add these two values, you would have 53 cents, or 5 dimes, 5 tens, and 3 pennies, 3 in the out of 100. So again, what do we already know about models and decimals? We know that we can show a decimal value, or how much it is, using a model. From my experience, I know that this place here is the hundredths place, or how much out of 100, less than 1. And this place value right next to the decimal on the right is tenths, or a dime, or less than $1. We're talking about values that are less than 1. All right, Bobcats, here's the steps for our lesson today. Step 1, we're going to color in or shade the model. We're going to go ahead and show what we have. Then after we have colored in or shaded the value, we can combine, we can put them together to solve. And we have to think, is it reasonable, right? Just like we had whole numbers, 5 plus 5, when we combine it, we can see that it equals 10. Or we could do 5 times 2, which equals 10, right? We can either add by combining, or we can multiply to solve a problem like this. So today we're going to be using models to try to figure out how do we solve a decimal multiplied by a whole number. We're going to be finding that product, and we're going to shade the model, combine the models after we shade to solve, and think, is it reasonable? Does my answer make sense? All right, Bobcats, we have to find 4 tenths times 2 using a model. Okay, now some students who have errors on this, they might look at 4 tenths and just want to color in 4 little squares, but that's 4 hundredths. And this problem here does not say 4 hundredths. It says that we have 4 in the tenths place, or like 4 dimes, or 40 cents out of $1. So I'm going to go ahead and use my model to color in 4 tenths. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't have 1. I'm going to go ahead and color in 2 models because I'm timesing it by 2. So again, the problem tells me 4 tenths times 2. Well, I have 4 tens out of 100, and I did that twice. Step 2, I shaded the model. Now step 2 is to combine. I'm going to put the value together. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths, right? My first one, which is here. And I'm going to combine it by putting the other 4 tenths. So now I have both of them combined. Step 1, shade the model. Step 2, combine them. Step 3 is where we actually get to solve. How many are shaded? Well, there's 4 and 4, so that's 8 tenths. Now, is it reasonable? Well, I know that 4 dimes plus 4 dimes is 80 cents. So my answer does make sense. All right, here's the next problem. 6 tenths times 3, and we're going to use the decimal model. Well, step 1 is to shade. Well, I have 6 dimes or 6 tens out of $1. So I colored in all 6, but I need to make sure I do that 3 times. So I'm going to go ahead and color in 6 tenths once, 2 times, and then finally I shade in 6 tenths. So now I have 3 6/10ths. I can move on to step 2. I can begin to think about how am I going to combine these into one drawing and not have 3 separate grids. So 6/10ths times 3. All right, Bobcats, I'm going to go ahead and start combining 6/10ths times 3. 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm actually going to change the color so you can see that I did all 3 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6/10ths, 6/10ths. But remember, the problem said I have 3 of them. So I'm going to do my last one. 1, 2, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths. So I combine all 3 shaded parts. They won't fit in one model. So I needed to use 2 so that I can combine what I have. So I have 6/10ths times 3, or 3 of them. All right, Bobcats, I know step 3 is to solve. We need to figure out how much did we shade. Well, I shaded one hole, right? This is a hole. And then how many out of the other one? Well, 8 tenths, or 80 out of 100. So I know it's reasonable because I have shaded 1 and 8 parts out of 10. I have the right answer. Shade the model to find the product. Well, I have 3 tenths. 3 is in the tenths place, so I have 30. But it says that I have 2 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and shade 3 tenths 2 times. And then step 2, after I shade the model, is I'm going to combine. Well, I can combine 3 tenths, and I'm going to use a different color to do my other 3 tenths, maybe green, because we're the Bobcats. And 3 tenths, well, I've combined them. 3 and 3, well, that's 6. So I can solve, and I know that 3 tenths times 2 is 6 tenths. It's reasonable because my image shows me 6 are colored out of 10, or 6 dimes out of $1, 6 tenths. I can move on. Practice it. We have 3 tenths, and this time we have 3 of them. Well, here's 1, 2, 3 tenths. I better do the other 3 tenths. 1, 2, 3, 3 tenths. And I have another 3 tenths. Okay, we'll shade the model. I shaded 3 tenths 3 times. Step 2, combine. 1, 2, 3 tenths. I can go ahead and do the next 3 tenths. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3 tenths. Okay, well, step 3 is to solve. How much is it when I combine 3 tenths 3 times? Well, the answer is 9 tenths, or 90 out of 100. Both would be correct. You don't have to put the 0 there. It's the same value. And it's reasonable because I can see right here that that's how much I colored. All right, Bobcats, let's apply what we've learned. Caleb is growing a plant in science class. The plant grows 4 centimeters. Well, it's not 4, right? It's 4 tenths of a centimeter. Each week. How much will the plant grow in 3 weeks? Well, The first week, it grows 4/10, right? Not a full one, just part of something. When you see that decimal, it's part. It's not a whole number. Okay, and then week 2, 4 more tenths. I can go ahead and shade my model. Okay, week 3, because it says he grew this plant for 3 weeks. Notice I used the color green because it's a plant. And I'm going to color in 4/10 again. Step 1, I shaded my model. Let's go ahead and combine the total growth of the plant. Well, he had his plant grow 4/10 of a centimeter. Then it was another week, and he had another growth spurt, 4/10 more. On week 3, it kept growing 4 more tenths. So I combined, which is step 2. Step 3 is to solve. How much is shaded? Well, I have 1 whole, right, and 2/10 of a centimeter. And I know it's reasonable because my drawing illustrates that 1 and 2/10 of a centimeter is what his plant grew. All right, Bobcats, lesson 6-2, or chapter 6, lesson 2 is done. And here's that question that we always see. What did you learn today? Well, in summary, I learned that you can multiply a decimal and a whole number. And when you multiply a decimal and a whole number, the decimal is a value that's less than 1. Okay, and it's useful to use a model. Sometimes if you illustrate or draw what you're doing in math, it's easier to understand what's happening. And so I'm hoping that today, in summary, you learned that when you multiply a decimal and a whole number, the value, the product, the answer you get is larger than what you started with. It's growing. It's getting bigger. And all of the illustrations today showed you that when we multiply a decimal by a whole number, the value gets larger. Thank you for your attention, Bobcats. Have a great day.